Hi, I'm the Space Quest Historian, and welcome to SQH Reviews, or Save Game Theater. If you've stumbled onto this review by accident, let me just briefly introduce the concept here. On my channel, I normally play Let's Plays of games that I've never played before, but thanks to the kind folks over on patreon.com/SpaceQuestHistorian, I am now also doing this, reviewing games that I've already played for people who have also played the game. Which is to say that the goal here is not to entice you to go out and play the game, because I'm going to assume that you already have played the game all the way through. This means there is going to be full-on spoilers of the games that I'm covering in this series, because I want to get in there and really talk about every facet of the game, and not just, what's on the surface. And today, we'll be talking about Inherit the Earth. A game that truly does have something greater underneath its surface, despite its deceptively charming and colorful surface. And I just spent the entire afternoon going through my cellar, trying to find my old game box here, which was hiding in some discarded old garbage bag under a bunch of shit. And have a look here. Yep, it's even still got the old instruction manual and the reference card in it. Ain't that grand? So, it's a game that I picked up back in, my teenage years, kind of on a whim, in a bookstore, no less, that had about, 5 other games on the shelves, and all of those games were strategy games, and I think I was there to return a book or something. So, I had to leave the store with something. And I was, looking at the back of the box. It's a nice box, it's very colorful, it's got some nice screenshots, and the, it said it was an adventure game, and it said it was, a CD-ROM talkie. Enhanced CD-ROM version. So I figured, hey, I like adventure games. I'll pick this up. I have no idea what it is. It's cheap. I'm just here to return something. Fuck it. So you might look at this game and think, oh well, these are some cutesy animals running around being, chivalrous to each other. Maybe it's like a Disney movie. Maybe one of them will break into song at one point. Thankfully, none of them break into song at any point. That doesn't count. And the, cutesy atmosphere quickly erodes away once you realize that no one in this game seems to give a flying fuck about your quest. To quickly recap said quest, you play as Rif, a member of the Fox tribe, and as a fox, you're generally mistrusted and considered devious, sneaky, and even a bit thiefy. During an otherwise pleasant fairground event, the Orb of Storms is stolen, a somewhat mysterious object that apparently predicts the weather, which the animal tribes use to plan their agricultural activities. Maybe we should backtrack here for a minute. Why are there talking animals running all over the place? Well, the game actually takes place in the distant future, where humans have become extinct. And it's implied through the game's opening sequence that a biological weapon eradicated all human life. And this was actually confirmed by the game's author, this guy, who goes by the name of Talon. But the current right holders of the game, who re-released the game in 2004, have since backtracked on this explanation of the human's disappearance in favor of leaving it unanswered for a potential sequel. Well, balls to them, that is clearly a microbe those cavemen with the floppy arms are running from, and the sequel in question hasn't materialized despite over 10 years and 2 Kickstarters in the making, so until anyone says otherwise, I'm going with the biological weapon thing. Now, before the humans wiped themselves off the face of the Earth, they gave the animals of the planet the ability to speak and act like humans. Don't ask me why, maybe it was just a hobby of ours. But now, at the time of the game's events, this all happened a long time ago, and nobody bothered to teach anyone to read except for the rats, so the humans have long since moved into the obscurity of legend and myth. And we'll get back to all of that near the end of the game, but for right now, you're a fox, and you've been accused of stealing the orb. Why? Well, because you're a fox, damn it. Foxes steal. I mean, come on.
No, Elk. We are not thieves. We do not sneak around and steal like the fox.
Hey!
Quiet! Or is there something you'd like to tell us?
Just that foxes don't always steal.
Hawk, go with them. Find this.
In a somewhat contrived setup, you're then sent on your quest, followed by your two companions, Ak, the boar, and Ia, the elk, which has success written all over it because the boars and the elks traditionally hate each other's guts. So it's off to investigate, and this is where it starts becoming obvious that while everyone really misses the orb, no one gives two flying shits about you or your quest. Why, there's a ram standing here just outside the fairground tent. Maybe he has something helpful to offer.
To you, sir. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions?
If it isn't the fox that closed down the fair and ruined my vacation. Would I mind if you asked me a few questions? Of course not. You may waste all of my time if you wish.
Can you give me any advice in looking for the missing orb?
Yes, I can. I suggest you take the longest, most difficult route available. Don't forget to stop occasionally and bang your head with a large rock or other blunt instrument. Bury your face in a hill of red ants whenever you can. And if you should run across any rams that might be on holiday, don't forget to take time out and totally ruin it for them.
Yup. And then we have the keeper of the orb itself, a kitty cat named Alara, who won't even let us have a look around the sanctuary without us running off and getting her a golden apple first. Seriously, do these people want the fucking orb back or not? Why all the jumping through hoops? And by the way, if they think I stole it, why wouldn't I just break into the sanctuary to have a look? Oh, never mind. We find out that the thief has left behind a print in the mud, and of course we want to find out what type of animal this was. Ia apparently slept through animal footprint identification class, so it's off to see the rat tribe to see if they can identify it. The rats in this game are a cave-dwelling race of secretive librarians, keeping records that date all the way back to when the humans were still alive. But it doesn't mean that they're terribly bright.
I have an idea to distract him. Play along. We'd like to make an appointment.
Very well then. What is your name again?
My name is Rif of the Fox tribe.
Rif of the Fox tribe. And you are?
This is Who Are You of the Boar tribe. And Yasser I Am of the Elk tribe.
You are who?
No. Yasser I am.
No, who are you? That's me. You? Who are you? Who are you? I'm the doorkeeper. Who are you? Who are you? I said I'm the doorkeeper.
Okay, so now we're in, and... oh my fucking god. Okay, get used to this maze because you are going to have to traverse it several times, and there is no way to fast track it once you already know where you're supposed to go. Your goal is to reach the office of Sist the Rat at the end, and Sist lives at the fucking far end of this place. And when you know it, he won't even come to take a look at the footprint.
Let me see it then.
The clue, unfortunately, I cannot show you. It is a footprint found outside the scene of the crime. You must come with me to look at it.
That is impossible. I have far too many duties to leave now. However, if you make a cast of the print and bring it to me, I will attempt to identify it.
How do I make such a cast?
Obtain some plaster and pour it into the footprint.
Okay, fine. We go all the way back, find some plaster,
One bag of plaster coming right up.
make a cast.
Looks good. Now, to use it before it dries. Perfect.
Then return to Sist and...
Who is it? You must tell me.
Not so fast. My knowledge does not come cheap.
oh, you fucking dick. Okay, so it's off to the Boar King for a little excursion. Again, are these people even the slightest bit interested in me actually completing this quest? They seem to have me going out of my way to get just the tiniest bits of information out of them. And this is the first little taste we get of a game mechanic that is going to come back and haunt us later in the game. Check out these hallways. Nope, I'm not gonna spoil anything. You just have a good look at these hallways. Alright. In the mud bath of the Boar King, we find a ring with a wolf's head insignia on it. And after going through the entire maze for what is now the third goddamn time, Sist finally coughs up the information we need.
Where do they belong?
The footprint belongs to a raccoon.
A raccoon?
A rather large male in his mid-30s, I'd say.
But raccoons are pretty rare in these parts.
This raccoon isn't from these parts.
So it's off to the north with us, but we have no idea where to go. Luckily, this guy's a map maker. Maybe he can help us.
My name is Tycho Northpaw.
You mentioned something called a light catcher. What is that?
Ah, my light catcher. It is an instrument I found in this house. It makes objects that are far away seem close at hand. It makes the stars seem so close you could reach up and touch them. It makes the moon look as if it were right next door.
What a wonderful apparatus. May we see it?
I will show it to you, but I'm afraid the instrument itself is broken. About 8 moons ago, I had it on my desk. A strong wind blew through my window, blowing papers to the floor and taking my light catcher with it. Part of it shattered, and it has not worked since. It still pains me to think about it.
I fucking knew it. Okay, we have to fix his light catcher, which is obviously a telescope, but the animals, morphs, are just finding these human artifacts all over the place and they have no idea what their true purpose is. And it's kind of cute at first, but also kind of sinister, and I'll get back to that. In fact, this whole business with the light catcher lens is actually where we get our first taste of what exactly these orbs are. Yes, there's more than one orb. The one we're looking for is the Orb of Storms, and it predicts the weather. But the ferrets are in possession of a different orb, one which this glassmaker and his odd accent describes as...
The one who knows all speaks to us. He tells us how to build things and answers our questions. However, we do not understand most of what he says.
Where can we find him?
The one who knows all is not in the body. He speaks to us through unit.
Please go on.
Perhaps I've said too much already.
Okay, so we go to the ferret leader, who clearly went to the school of what the fuck am I doing of voice acting, and asked to speak to unit. And...
What do you know of the one who knows all?
Only that you turn to him when all else fails. Please, can you not consult him now? It is a matter of life and death.
Very well. We will show the glass to unit and...
Wait! Only a member of our guild may speak with the one.
Then he shall be an honorary member.
The rest of us had to pass a test to prove our worthiness. Tradition must be upheld.
Test! Test! Test!
Very well. Bring on the tanagram.
Motherfucker. Alright, maybe now perhaps we can get somewhere.
Rif, I hereby grant you honorary membership in the ancient and honorable order of tinkerers, fabricators, and...
All right, let's get on with it.
Here is unit. Have you ever seen such a marvel?
Oh, one who knows all, I bow to you.
Correct.
What?
Bending of torso at waist and lowering until perpendicular with standing surface, returning to original position, correctly identified as bow.
I told you we don't always understand him.
Yep, it's an ancient computer. Apparently computer technology evolved for us humans to the point where we just carry around tiny orbs with voice input in our pockets. And I think Google should get right on that. Anyway, wouldn't you know it?
Unit requires proper identification of glass apparatus, or alternate name for instrument of origin.
Perhaps light catcher is not the proper name.
You could be right. If the apparatus is as old as you say it is, the one may know it by a different name.
Then there must be a record of it.
Those records would be ancient. Where would they be?
You have got to be fucking shitting me. Right, so we return with the proper terminology.
Telescope. It's a lens from a telescope.
Cheers, Rif. And after a bit more fetch questing to get some red clay from the Boar King's mud bath, where even Rif at this point seems to not give a shit.
Friend, I was going to strip myself of every vestige of dignity I have left for your pleasure. But now, I don't think I'm going to.
Did I miss something?
We finally return with a working telescope for old Tycho here.
Hello, sir.
Ah, it's you. Well, did you do it? Did you fix my light catcher?
That I did, sir.
Oh, how can I ever thank you?
By fulfilling your part of the bargain.
A traveler was through a couple of days ago. He was from the north and was on his way back there. He gave me a great deal of information, which I've included on this map.
How fortunate.
Yes, in fact, he was quite forthcoming with his information. For a raccoon.
A raccoon? Kindly remove them from the map. This information I do not trust.
Yeah, so Raccoon Boy knows we're on to him. Right. Well, we're off to the north to find passage to the northern island that Sist was talking about. We just, gotta go through this old castle here.
Who goes there?
I am Rif of the Fox tribe and associates. We seek passage.
Passage you shall have. All you have to do is pay the toll. Us? Pay you? Dog must have gotten a hold of a bad bone.
By whose authority is this highway robbery allowed to happen?
Prince.
Prince who?
Prince, that's it, just Prince. I'm sure that if you told him but a few humorous stories, he would not only grant you safe passage, but make you his honored guests as well.
Not bad. A few jokes and we're out of here. Good evening, ladies and germs.
Take our guests to the dungeon until I decide what to do with them.
Ow! What happened?
Apparently, Prince really didn't like that last story.
Where are we?
Okay, that did not go as expected. Okay, so we find our way out of this jail cell, but we leave our two companions behind because...
The tunnel is too small for me, and probably too small for...
It appears that I am the only one who...
and it's at this point that the game starts getting a little weird. See, it's at this point I feel like I should interject something, because up until this point, despite all the backtracking and the endless walking and the kind of lead on a string fetch quest variety puzzle solving, Inherit the Earth has actually been very well put together. I mean, there's a ton of good dialogue, there's some well-developed characters, there's some interesting locations to visit, and the puzzles, like I said, they've been kind of on the fetch quest variety, but at least it's been like standard adventure game fare. It's a bit on the easy side, but yeah, who gives a shit? But it generally feels like a lot of good time and effort went into making this. And that all seems to change from this point on, because you can feel how the developers suddenly started panicking and realizing that they were actually running out of time to finish the game the way they wanted to. And although there are some, really cool things up ahead for us, nowhere is this panicking more evident than...
Uh-oh.
Whatever the hell this is supposed to be. I mean, first of all, I have no idea why the dogs apparently keep the sprawling red maze of precarious stone catwalks in their basement. Second, what is this fucking lizard thing chasing you around, and why are they keeping it down here? And third, what the hell is Prince doing here? I'll tell you what. Nothing! He's just standing around watching you. He doesn't do anything. You can't even interact with him. It's like they put him into the scene and then immediately forgot that they did so. And don't get me started. This maze is unforgivingly hard. Your goal is to get to the top left corner of the maze where there's an exit, but this is made so much more difficult by the fact that, first of all, you start off in a random location, and second of all, every time you run into this fucking lizard thing here, it knocks you off and teleports you to another random location, making the whole thing very hard to map out. Thankfully, the whole sequence is also completely and utterly broken. Every time you load a save game in the maze, the game thinks you've been knocked off by the lizard, and it teleports you to a random location. So, instead of trying to beat the maze fair and square, just keep doing that, like save and reload, until the game puts you someplace near the exit. Okay, now we're finally out and we're all on our own. So we can't sneak back in to free our friends because...
If I try to sneak past those guards, I'll almost certainly be captured. I'll have to come up with another way to get past them.
So we have no other choice but to go explore the northern lands on our own, and... Ooh, that can't be good.
Heavens, that storm certainly appeared quickly. It looks like a bad one, too. If the Orb of Storms were in the hands of its rightful owners, we could have predicted this.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, after exploring, everything suddenly clears up and becomes all sunny again. We come across this camp of wildcats. Despite first impressions, they're actually quite hospitable.
At last, perhaps I can find food and shelter here.
Halt! Stand where you
Well, more to the point, we kind of make them hospitable. Anyway, blah blah blah, there's a whole bit here about having to fix up the chiefess's daughter who's been injured, and then the wildcats will then in turn help you out with the dogs. We'll never hear or see these characters again, so here's the ultra short version. You talk this old cat into making a potion from you. She needs catnip, which is great. Now we're scoring drugs for cats. We need to smoke out some bees, and we need to get a sewing needle and thread from this asshole.
Iris Honeyfoot is my name. Dry goods merchant extraordinaire is my game.
Shut up, you bring my piss to a boil. And then we patch up little kitty, boogie on, and get down and jiggy with it. And then the wildcat chiefess drugs the dogs to sleep so we can infiltrate the castle. Boom!
It is done.
And at this point, the game feels like it hasn't been jerking you around enough already, so it now throws this gigantic, big-ass, sprawling maze at you. Seriously, there is no way you're gonna get through this thing without drawing a map. I mean, the other mazes in this game so far, you could kinda get through without too much trouble. They're just tedious long walks through these isometric corridors. But this one is a pseudo 3D maze. If you walk down a hallway, then turn around and walk back, the perspective changes. Kinda like you're seeing the maze from Rif's first-person perspective, even though he's right fucking there on the screen. And this makes it impossible to navigate without knowing exactly where you're going. And since you don't, well, get out your pen and paper and start drawing a fucking map. When I played this game for the first time, this is exactly what I did, even though I hate mazes and I hate drawing maps. Thankfully, these days you can just go online and find directions that lead you straight through it, and that's what I did this time, so fuck it, let's just skip to the good stuff. You steal the key from the sleeping prince, then make your way to the jail cell.
Hey, I see a fox.
These are not smart dogs. Free your compatriots.
Rif, you've returned. I knew you would.
Let's go.
Make your way back out.
Now I see a fox, a boar, and an elk.
I'll see that, and raise you a duck, a pig, and a dozen mice.
Still not clever. And finally... Okay, now we can get to the boat and get passage to the northern island. Our friendly boat captain here has some good information about what to watch out for. Basically everything. But particularly, we should watch out for a tribe of wolves with the groan-inducingly awful name, Hunters of the Dark Claw. Apparently these are emo wolves. Oh, and he also seems to know something about the fella we're chasing, but he's not exactly willing to spill any beans.
Nothing. I know it's nothing. Now leave me be.
Good sir, lives hang in the balance.
I've said too much already. Now leave me be, or so help me, I'll throw the lot of ye off me boat. I swear it.
Fine, jeez. And now we come to the final parts of the game. This northern island is where the endgame takes place, but first we must, of course, go annoy some wolves, because we've been hearing a lot about these wolves. First, let's interrupt the one that's taking a shower.
Was it something I said?
My name is Shiala. I live in these woods. You may continue in peace. But remember, I'll be keeping an eye on you.
Now, luckily, Shiala doesn't maul us the second we take a peek at her wolfy boobs, but going up a suspiciously human-looking dam structure, though, we suddenly run into a bunch of guys who are not so keen on us poking around.
I have a plan. Attention! I hereby declare all of you my prisoners. We could have wandered for days before finding the camp of the Hunters of the Dark Claw, but luckily here we are.
Uh-huh. We're sitting here in a cage, held prisoner by a bunch of crazy wolves who are keeping us alive just for the pleasure of killing us later. Yeah, I'm feeling real lucky.
And finally, we get to meet the asshole we've been trailing this whole time. His name is Chota, and does he in fact have the orb?
Oh my, yes. I have it all right, and I intend to keep it.
Well, good, that settles that. And what's his big plan?
You see, the Orb of Storms is only a small part of a much larger force. A force which will enable me to actually control the weather.
What?
It's true. Can you imagine? It will rain as long as I say it will, and it will stop when I say. It will be blazing hot or freezing cold at my pleasure. Floods or droughts at my command.
And what will determine which weather you create?
Why, the will of the people, of course. I am their servant. Naturally, they will elect me their governor. And what happens if the tribes do not elect you? Ah, then I'm afraid I'll have to take rather drastic measures. But fear not.
Cool. Well, the Dark Claw Hunter Emo Wolves wants to kill us, and they'll do anything that Chota says, and in fact there's a whole mess here about how Chota has gotten the Dark Claw Wolves to make an alliance with the Boars, which will then plunge the entire morph world into an Iron Fist dictatorship with Chota as the all-powerful ruler. It's actually pretty heavy stuff, and you can see where the developers started clashing with their publisher here. This actually bears a little side note as well. See, the original publishers of this game, New World Computing, their logo is hiding underneath this original sticker from the bookstore I mentioned at the start of this video. I paid 199 Danish krona for it, which is not a lot for a computer game. Even in those days, it was usually 400 or 500 krona. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that New World Computing saw these talking animals and saw this, colorful world, and immediately thought, kid-friendly game. This will be our Disney. This will be, it's cutesy, it's cuddly. Maybe they'll break into song. The developers, the Dreamers Guild, had something a little darker in mind. Actually, it was meant to have, some dark undertones and be an adult-themed game. Not in the, phantasmagoria sense or anything. It wasn't supposed to be a horror game, but it was supposed to be an adult-themed game. And, they actually had to tone down the end product considerably in order to appease the publisher. And so what we got was this, strange, interesting tone where everything's like pretty cutesy and cuddly on the surface, and then once you get into it, there's some really dark shit going on underneath. Okay, back to the story. Come sunup, Shower Lady here frees us from our prison, and again, this is where you can kind of see the deadlines creeping up on the developers. Because there's no real goal from this point on other than to find out where Chota is hiding, and there's really no one around to tell you how to do that. Instead, you're just wandering around the island, discovering weird shit that the humans have left behind. Like this airfield, which, truth be told, never fails to send a shiver up my spine. Especially this room. On the surface, it's just a quiet reception area that's been lost to the ages, but it has this ominously flashing evacuate sign. Evidently everyone had to get out in a hurry, and spoiler, you're never actually told whether anyone made it out or not, but the clear implication is that no one did. Now, what you're actually walking around in here, essentially, are mausoleums, like ruins of the human civilization, and the game gives you a really palpable sense of a place that was once teeming with life, but all of a sudden everyone just dropped whatever they had in their hands and ran screaming for their lives, and it doesn't explain where they all went, and it doesn't explain why there are no bodies lying around. It's just calm and serene, and it has this creepy undertone. Oh, it's so creepy, and this is by far my favorite part of the game. This is actually why I wanted to review this game in the first place, because this, above anything, shows how dark the game truly is underneath its cuddly exterior. Mankind, defeated by our own technological hubris, but not before we have actually created our own replacements, the morphs, and the legacy we've left behind for them to discover. It's big stuff to think about, but it's also frustrating in a sense, because I love the fact that the game doesn't really explain anything, but at the same time you can tell it probably wasn't the intent of the game's designers to leave things this open-ended, because it's at this point that the game sadly just flat out gives up and sprints for the exit. You find a key card that gets you deeper into the human ruins, whatever the hell it's doing hanging off a cliffside, I have no idea. And that leads you to another maze. At this point, when I was playing the game for the first time, I damn near gave up, but the whole bit with the human ruins actually had me so hooked that I got out my pen and paper and forced my way through this. And luckily, this maze is not nearly as massive and sprawling as the dog maze. In fact, it's deceptively small, but you can get turned around real easy if you're just trying to wing it. You find this glowing triangle thing that, honestly, I am not sure what the hell it's supposed to be. You give it some batteries that you find atop a dam. Actually, the dam we just went up when we got captured by the Dark Claw wolves. And this is also where the sound designer got a little bit lazy. Yeah, recognize that one. You take all of this stuff back to the waterfall where you first met Shiala, and you head behind the waterfall to the cave where Shiala lives. Now there's a door off to the side here that's locked, and the glowing triangle thing is the key to open it.
Sometimes I hear strange noises coming from behind it.
Perhaps this will do the trick.
It's going to do a trick?
Just a figure of speech. It works!
Hey, nice trick!
It looks like some sort of tunnel.
Once you're inside, all you have to do is head to the exit, and the game pretty much takes care of itself on autopilot from then on. Seriously, there's an overpowering sense here that something big was gonna happen, but instead, these are all just empty rooms where you can literally do nothing. I actually even contacted Joe Pierce, the guy in charge of Wormkeep Entertainment, who bought back the rights for the re-release, and he was also on the original development team, and he says that the encounter was, quote, shortened a little, but nothing significant to the plot was removed. Now, granted, the plot may be intact for all intents and purposes, but this still feels very sparse and even anticlimactic, especially when all you have to do to finally complete the game is this.
This bed has been used recently and smells of raccoon.
You! I knew you had escaped the wolves, but I didn't expect you to find me here.
Yep, that's it. Just walk up, climb up the ladder, talk to Chota, or just walk up to him, and the game takes care of itself from then on.
Storms. He's getting away! After him!
You see? You didn't know you had a wolf behind you, did you?
That's nothing compared to what's behind you.
What?
I'm behind you, and I've got the orb.
Why, you... Give me that orb! Throw it! Throw it! Throw it to... me? Now, boy, prepare to meet your doom! Ah! Give me that orb!
I think not.
Aren't you tired yet?
I guess that's it for the Orb of Storms.
I wonder what they'll do with us.
Guys, he's still behind you. Why are you just standing there going... Never mind. So that's Inherit the Earth. It's a quirky little game made by a first-time developer, and you can tell they had some grand ambitions with this thing. I mean, the presentation for its time is good. It starts out very strong. It's got a cohesive story, a very clear goal, clear quest that you have to follow. It's got an interesting buddy mechanic with your two companions here, and some really surprisingly good voice acting. Sadly, the ambitious scope kind of shows, because they obviously didn't have time to finish the game the way that they wanted to. And there are also some very poor design choices throughout it. First of all, the body mechanic doesn't actually work the way they intended, because most of the time these two jerks just follow you around and don't actually contribute to any puzzle solving. There are, I don't know, 3 or 4 instances where you can tell either Ak or Ia to, talk to someone, and usually it's the wrong option. You're supposed to actually bribe them. Fetch quests, again. They just basically follow you around and do nothing. And the absolute worst design flaw, of course, is the amount of tedious walking you have to do, because I get that they were going for this, grand, epic scope, a vast, sprawling world to explore, but there is no excusing for having to go through, like, the rat maze. No less than 4 times at a minimum. That's if you know what you're doing. You have to go through that thing 4 fucking times. And, the puzzle design could also have been a little better, because instead of letting the player deduce things on his own, instead of, having me sit down here and think, well, who would know what a plaster cast means, the characters basically just straight up tell you, oh, the rats. The rats know how to do this. We should go check out the rats. They do have a tendency to sort of lead you on a string instead of, having you deduce things on your own, and they tell you exactly where you need to go. And most of the actual plot development of the game is then taken care of on autopilot. There are some frighteningly long cutscenes where characters just walk around the stage or the room and, basically hammer things out on their own without any input from you whatsoever. And it doesn't help that pretty much all of the puzzles, save for the mazes and that one little jigsaw thing, are fetch quests. I mean, there are fetch quests where the NPCs clearly tell you where to go and find the items, no less. So it doesn't even take any brain power for you to figure this out. Okay, and of course I have to bring up the mazes again. I mean, the game literally grinds to a halt once you get to the dog maze. And for no good reason. I mean, because there are only 2 places of interest in the entire castle. You have to go to Prince's bedroom, and you have to go to the jail cell. So exploring the maze is just a tedious exercise, and it stops the game dead in its tracks. All that said, this is a very interesting game, and it's one that I find myself coming back to every once in a blue moon, and that's because of the story. Not the story itself with the orb theft and the raccoon hunts and all that stuff. It's the underlying story. It's the one with, the humans have either perished or they fled, and how the morphs came into being. All of that stuff is fascinating and very, very subtle, and I do wish that there had been more of that in the game. And it actually seems like there would have been more of it if the developers had had the time to finish the game properly. I don't know what the fucking rush was, but this is not a finished game. So, what we've got is actually a fascinating game, marred by some very poor design choices and a very rushed development. I still recommend getting it, because, even just to play with a walkthrough, because Wormkeep, who now own the rights, have re-released the game so it runs on modern machines. Actually, it already did run on modern machines, because you could easily get the old CD-ROM to work in ScumVM, and the re-release also works in ScumVM, and I would actually recommend you do that, because the Windows executable that Wormkeep have provided for the game is a little bit buggy. And also, the save games, if you make save games in the Wormkeep executable, you can't use the same save games in ScumVM. Believe me, I tried. So, finally, I know there's something you've been wondering ever since I started this review that I haven't talked about at all. Is this a furry game? Well, yes and no. Actually, it was made by furries, for furries. The first presentation of the game was at a furry convention, but it's more than that. And there is no reason why you should let that stop you from playing the game for some stupid reason. I mean, I had no idea what the hell a furry was when I bought and played the game for the first time, and it didn't stop me from enjoying the game. So if that for some reason is a deal breaker for you, that it's a furry game with talking animals in it, then I think there's something wrong with you. So that's the very first Space Quest Historian video review. Tune in next month, where I will hopefully have another game in store for you to peruse, or at least, show you. So anyway, please let me know if you agree with the stuff I've said about Inherit the Earth, if you've played the game and you liked it, or if I just spoiled the fuck out of it. I did warn you at the start of the video. But please, like, subscribe, do whatever you kids do. Do leave me a comment in the YouTube-y thing down here. I do love the comments. So, thank you, and I will see you around the Chrono Stream.